Good evening, all. My name is Tiffany Montoya, hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterward through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet. So if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider 5 items. This is the order. Order number 204318 for 1890 Grove Street is first, followed by order number 204319 for Upper Terrace and 17th Street, followed by order number 204320 at 651 Scott Street, and then order number 204321 at 3641 California Street, and lastly, order number 204322 at 1234 Lombard Street. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will be forwarding the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determinations. When the Director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows for the 5 cases. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. Then I will allow the appellant to speak, then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak. Then the department, if the department would like to address any comments, and the appellant again, should the person have any rebuttals. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use the visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you are a member of the public or a witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments. Then use Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on the computer to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you're dialing in on the phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand, and I'll repeat that with each case. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *9 to unmute. So again, that's *6 to unmute. So that's *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak, and then you will have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of the hearing. If I feel a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. So first order, number 204319 at, excuse me, 204318 at 1890 Grove Street. I'll have Steve present the case.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Steve Keller. I'll be representing Public Works and the Bureau of Urban Forestry tonight. The first case is regarding a tree at 1890 Grove Street. Consider the removal of one hazardous street tree. The tree is located on the Ashbury frontage of this property. Bureau of Urban Forestry staff originally approved the tree for removal, and the public has protested. This is a current photo of the tree. It's a red ironbark eucalyptus. It's a species that is fairly prone to branch failures due to its quick growth and poor branching structure. We've been monitoring the tree since 2015 because it has had several failures since then. Recently, there was another large failure in 2020 that left the tree with a low live crown ratio and wounds that might girdle the remaining stem. The primary area of concern is on the main stem. There's several injuries, and the trunk also takes an odd twist. So as the tree continues to grow and put on more weight, that area will be the likely point that the tree will fail. You can see that there's some old injuries at that point, and as those continue to decay, we're afraid the tree would break in half. And here's a photo of the most recent failure, kind of in the same general area. It was a large branch tear out. It doesn't seem to be healing great, which is a sign of low vigor. And again, the main concern with this tree is, although that it is healthy, we're concerned as it continues to grow quickly, this will be a point of failure and the tree will crack in half. And really, it's been the residents on the block that have been pushing us to approve the tree for removal because they were afraid of it. And then, given its history, it is a tree that the Bureau of Urban Forestry has wanted to remove. And then finally, it has some poor trunk taper, which is a sign that it isn't quite as strong as we'd like it to be in terms of roots and lower trunk stability. And then finally, in terms of replacement, the site is replantable. And if we can find a nearby resident who is able to water, we would be able to put a tree back there and relatively quickly and have someone from the neighborhood water. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. And then next we'll have the appellant to put in the protest. Do we have that person?
We have Mark raising his hand. Mark, I'm going to allow you to talk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Mark Davignon. I live at 48 Ashbury Street. Right next to the house that this tree is, the address that this tree is located at. And I've been, you know, I worked 35 years in the federal government in environmental work. So I care about trees, I care about the environment. And I've lived in this house 25 years and I've watched this tree drop large limbs during storms. One time it hit a car and it has missed people. And most recently, about a 200 or 300 pound limb came down in front of my garage, which I moved out of the way about 7:30 in the morning, I think in December or November. And it just scared me because it came down so fast. I was standing in my living room. We have a lot of dog walkers, a lot of people on the sidewalk. There was no chance for any person under that tree to get out of the way. We also have homeless that like to hang out under this tree. So as much as I love trees and love what the city is doing for trees in the city, this one really scares me. And I just would hate to see it come down on someone. I'm not protesting the removal of the tree. I'm in favor of removal and replacing the tree. And I have taken care of, you know, the vegetation at the bottom of the tree I used to care for and water. I'd be happy to help get a replacement tree in here. I'm retired. I'd be happy to put water in the bag or whatever and try to get a new tree established. Bottle brush trees are quite hardy, but I trust the city to come up with a good tree once this one is removed. So that's kind of the sum of my thing. I'm all for trees, but I really fear that this is going to crack. I've been watching it. I think there's some kind of dry rot in this trunk as well. If you look at it, when the branch that came down, the wood was soft inside. It wasn't a hardy. I know this is a eucalyptus, but it seemed to me that there was some rot going on. And I think the tree is slowly dying, unfortunately. So it also almost took our wires down, which I'm trying to avoid losing power because it could come down and take my line out, which runs right next to the tree. So I don't know, that's it. I guess that's about it in a nutshell. I really, I want to work with the city to help the situation and hopefully we can get a better tree in there. So thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. And we have Lance Carnes. Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Okay, Lance here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not here to comment on the state of the tree. I'm here to comment on how to find the correct records in the Department of Public Works for this tree. As you know, there's an online listing of tree removals, and 1890 Grove Street did not appear on the online listing. And the number 52 Ashbury Street did appear. So I'm wondering why the subject tree is 1890 Grove. There are a couple other problems with these trees in their records. 52 Ashbury Street is tree ID 141604. And the same tree, as far as I can tell, at 1890 Grove has tree ID 54862. So there's quite a bit of difference. 141604, 54862. So my question to the inspector, Mr. Keller, is which tree are we talking about here? And why did you change the listing from 52 Ashbury Street on the online listing to 1890 Grove Street on this hearing removal? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carnes. And we have Josh Clip. Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I want to thank the earlier commenter for his willingness to help water a new tree, because that is, as Steve Keller knows, that is one of the biggest obstacles right now to getting new trees in the ground is the city's slashed budget around anything related to reforesting, replanting, and the reestablishing trees. So I'm hoping that the Bureau of Urban Forestry is able to work with that member of the public, whose name I apologize I didn't catch. And also, because there was a large species tree that sequesters a lot of CO2 in that space, the one that's proposed to come out, I would hope also that the Bureau would aim to not just plant, one for one, but actually a tree that offers the same ecosystem benefits or even better as the tree currently in its place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clip. Ms. Montoya, I don't see any other hands raised at this time. Oh, actually, there is one. John Nolte. Go ahead. Should say. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte. Yes.
Can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, I don't see in any of the pictures that was talked about by the neighbor that there is wires going through the tree for his or near to his house. That would be helpful to show, because it would also deal with what would be planted in its place. I don't see wires. I can see a little bit there. Anyway, that it would have to be a smaller thing, because if depending on what kind of wire that is, how it would affect the new tree planted. Again, we don't want whatever type of wiring that is for the neighbor and or the neighborhood to harm those or to have it be cut because of the wiring of the houses on the block. And my last comment would be that we need a large stature tree to replace the large stature tree that's being removed. Thank you, and bye.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. If you have spoken, we do ask that you only have one opportunity to speak. If you have something further you would like to add, I will put our urban forestry address in the chat, and you can email us, and I will forward your written statements to the hearing officer. There are no more hands, or actually there's one phone caller. Phone number ending in 595. You should be able to speak.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yes, hi, I am a neighbor as well. And I just wanted to let you know that the power line can be seeing in the leftmost photo, to answer the gentleman's question, next to the tree, and it is the power line that goes to 48 Ashbury. Also, in response to the inquiry about the different addresses, I happen to know that 1890 Grove is the address of the corner building, but the corner building faces Grove. The tree itself faces Ashbury. So if someone was actually driving on Ashbury Street and wanted to see where the tree was located, common sense would say that it would be 52 Ashbury because it's right next to 50, although it's on the lot that's for 1890 Grove, which faces the other street. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Ms. Montoya.
Okay. If there are no more comments for this item, I will close the item and will make my recommendations for the director. So we'll now move on to order number 204319 at Upper Terrace and 17th Street. I'll have Steve Keller please make their presentation.
All right. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this hearing item comprises of 3 separate addresses and 3 separate tree removal permits. However, they're all being included as one hearing item because it's one development project being constructed by one owner. Here's kind of a general outline of the site. 271 Upper Terrace is, well, first off, the site is located at the intersection of 17th Street, Roosevelt, and Uranus Terrace. On the western side is bounded by Upper Terrace. There's currently 2 existing buildings on Upper Terrace. One will be demolished and one will be remodeled, and then 3 more new structures will be built along 17th Street. At 271 Upper Terrace, they're applying to remove 1 significant tree. At 303 Upper Terrace, they're applying to remove 1 street tree and 4 significant trees. And at 4500 17th Street, they're applying to remove 2 significant trees. I'm going to go through each property one by one. Again, 4500 17th Street is the smallest of the parcels. It only has frontage along 17th Street. They're applying to remove 2 significant eucalyptus trees. And a significant tree, according to Public Works Code, is any tree that is within 10 feet of the public right-of-way and is either 20 feet tall, has a canopy that is 15 feet wide, or a trunk diameter of 12 inches or greater. And any tree that is outside of 10 feet of the public right-of-way does not require a tree removal permit from Public Works. So the 2 trees are identified here, the 2 yellow stars. Here's the first tree. It is a eucalyptus, a blue gum eucalyptus, about 30 feet tall. It appears not to be in great condition. The canopy is quite sparse. It's located behind the stop sign. And again, the city approved removal because a new building is being built there. And the second tree at 4500 17th Street is a little bit past the stop sign. It is larger, also a blue gum eucalyptus. It is in a little bit better condition than the previous tree. Not great structure. It has multiple trunks. And again, the primary reason it was approved for removal because it's going to be in the footprint of the new building. Here's the next property. It's 271 Upper Terrace. It has frontage on both Upper Terrace and Roosevelt. The only tree that needs a removal permit on this property is this large juniper tree. It's up against the building facade. And the building it's adjacent to is going to be demolished and rebuilt. That is the reason. We didn't think they'd be able to protect and preserve it during construction. And then at 271 Upper Terrace, there is a a nice mature olive tree that is located in the sidewalk, and they are going to be working around that tree. So this is the one of the one trees that will be preserved. And then here we have, there's a typo there. It should say 301 to 303 Upper Terrace. They're applying to remove one Deodora cedar and on the Upper Terrace frontage, and then there's removal of 4 significant trees along the 17th Street frontage, 3 eucalyptus trees and 1 cypress tree. This is a photo of the Deodora cedar located on Upper Terrace. You can see that it's planted up right up against the facade of the building, and it is also located on top of several different utility lines, or very adjacent to some other utility mains. In the middle photo, you can see that the tree, the majority of the canopy overhangs the roofs. And again, there's going to be a lot of construction in that area. And the tree also has 2 tops, which is not ideal for long-term sustainability. And again, the tree, it kind of sits on the property line of these 2 different properties. The building on the left is going to be demolished, and the building on the right is going to be, I don't think it's being demolished, but it's being remodeled, and I assume there's going to be some significant structural work as well. And then down on the 17th Street frontage, there's 4 significant trees that they've applied to remove, which were all approved. The largest one is a large eucalyptus, blue gum eucalyptus tree, quite tall, but again, you could tell from the canopy, it doesn't appear to be in great health. A healthy eucalyptus will be full with kind of dark bluish green foliage. And then these 2 trees, they're kind of hard to make out, but they qualified as significant trees because they were over 20 feet tall. These 2 are also in the footprint of the new building. And then last, there is a Monterey Cypress that is also in the footprint of one of the new buildings. And you can, the canopy appears to be in good condition, but you can see the photo on the left, there is a significant amount of decay in the trunk. And again, all the trees were approved for removal because they're they're on private property in the footprint of new construction. In terms of tree replacement, at the end of this project, there will be the 3 parcels are being split into 5 parcels. So there's going to be 5 new buildings. Each property will be required to plant 1 tree for every 20 feet of frontage that borders the public right-of-way. That's just standard public works code for new construction, that how many trees they have to plant. For the new design, there was there has been sidewalk widening planned on 17th Street, which should accommodate new tree planting, which is good because currently the sidewalk is too narrow for new trees. The project will be required to plant as many new trees as possible. But obviously there's going to be a lot of competition with constraints of utilities, driveways, and streetlights. And then we will be assessing tree in lieu fees for the removal of significant trees without replacement. For every significant tree removed that is not replaced by a significant tree, we're going to charge the project tree in lieu fee of $2,193. But if you look along the 17th Street frontage, there is planned landscape areas at the back of the sidewalk. So they will be able to do some tree replacement in property. So not only will there be some street trees planted, but there are street trees meaning in the public right of way, but there's also some landscaping room designed to replace some trees back in the sidewalk as well. Yeah, that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I'll now open it up to the public. You can either raise your hand. If you're on the phone, again, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Looks like we have.
Lance Carnes, you should be able to speak now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So this project looks like it's a good one for Bureau of Urban Forestry, which has no money for replanting trees. So the developer will be responsible for removing and replanting all trees. Also, I wanted to go back to item 2, where I asked Mr. Keller some questions, which he did not get a chance to answer. You have 2 trees there, 1890 Grove, tree ID 54862, and 52 Ashbury, tree ID 141604. Which tree are we talking about for this particular site? Thank you. And please answer my question this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carnes, now we have Mr. Clip.
You hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I have a bunch of questions. Steve might not know the answer. Maybe nobody knows the answer, but I just want to put the questions on the record because we need to keep asking them. Here we go. First question is, what, if any, consideration was given for tree preservation at the planning stage? And if no consideration was given, why not? Second question is, well, we're losing a ton of trees to development in the city, and specifically because of construction methods that are so inflexible that they cannot work around almost any tree in the city that is near a new development site. And so the question is, what discussion was had about alternative construction methods that might have preserved any of these trees? Next, a lot of the trees that Steve called out here are pretty massive at CO2 sequestration, which is part of our city's climate action strategy. And specifically that without more sequestration, we're not going to reach our climate goals. And so is there a plan here to recoup the benefits that we're losing, especially since we're taking out all this permeable surface and putting in tons of impermeable surface? So that's my third question. Fourth question is, are any of these trees coming out for a driveway? Because research indicates that not only are we taking a permeable surface and replacing it with impermeable surface, and specifically concrete, which does not help anything in terms of climate change in a multitude of ways, but that every time we put in a driveway, it encourages more personal trips in one's vehicle, which adds to carbon footprint and pollution that we are trying so hard to sequester. Next question is, why were in lieu fees assessed rather than, which are basically the equivalent of putting in a baby tree versus what the trees are actually worth? And then final question is, why don't we know the number of trees that are going to be put back in? This is, by the time something goes through planning, we know what's going on the ground. We know what the footprint is. We know where the infrastructure is going in. We know where all these potential conflicts could be. Why are we at a removal hearing, but we don't know what the replacement number is going to be? That it seems like that is something that is we can figure out. Thanks.
Cerise, are you able to see if there's any more hand raised? Doesn't look like it online. But... Oh, Cerise, you're muted, but I'm seeing.
I'm sorry, there are 2 hands. There is Mr. John Nolte and Mr. Roy Leggett. So, and at the end, after all of you have spoken, the hearing officer will allow Mr. Keller to answer your questions. Mr. Nolte, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I find it very interesting some of the issues that were brought up by the previous speaker about, again, you have a development, you're at the final stages here, and you don't know what the how many street trees are going to go in around the perimeter of these 5. He said 3 parcels turning into 5 parcels. And so what I see here is a massive development of 5. Because you said at least one building's going down. But when I was looking at this is a corner, or I was looking at the upper one, I'm looking at a map of it, and you know, again, this is a hillside, and you're taking out all the trees that are currently on this hillside between the two streets. So I'm questioning why, again, you don't know the number of, per the code, every 20 feet is supposed to be a new tree. That should have been already discussed when, I assume this has already gone through planning for these, because this is usually should be the last part of a project that the so you should know how many trees are going around this these 5 parcels being put back in, and then hearing that there's landscaping going inside one or more of the properties. That's nice, but again, you're talking about very large, probably a couple acres of property here, and that's not relevant to me. To me is the trees, because which property would get the landscaping? I mean, you're dividing it 3 parcels into 5. And so it would be not a, it wouldn't be part of the 20 feet thing to have every 20 feet of trees. So that's kind of sidestepping the reason for planting 20 trees every 20 feet. That's my only comment, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. And we have Mr. Roy Leggett.
Hi, this is Roy Leggett. Are you able to hear me correctly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm the project arborist working for the owners. I just wanted to reinforce that Mr. Keller's evaluation of the eucalyptus trees, I thought was absolutely right. Those particular eucalyptus trees are basically at the bottom of an area where there's been a bunch of rock fall. They're kind of growing in some rubble and right at the edge of the road. It's really an unstable site as it is. There's a lot of movement with the rocks and boulders falling off the hill. And the trees have grown from seed down there at the bottom of the hill. I'm not talking about the trees up at the top, but down at the bottom, the blue gum eucalyptus are really just kind of growing in rubble. And they're crowded and growing out over, kind of competing with each other and growing out over the road in a really unusual or asymmetric way. So even if there weren't development here, I don't think those are long-term trees. So I appreciate Mr. Keller's assessment of those. I think he really did characterize them accurately. And new street trees, I don't know exactly how many are going to be planted, but the intention of the owners is to plant large trees and have some immediacy in larger scale landscape plantings, and also plant as many trees as can be fit in with the new utility configurations. Some of the planning process is out of their control and out of the city's control. And this is kind of to address Mr. Klipp's concerns and Mr. Nolte's also about not knowing how many street trees are going to be in the sidewalk. The utility providers like PG&E, they have a lot to say about where gas lines run and electrical runs. So there are electrical vaults underground and a lot of accommodations that have to be made. So some of that is competing for space with the street tree environment, and the developer can't anticipate all of that. It's partly out of their control. And
you have 30 seconds.
All right, thank you. And so anyway, that's about all I have to say about that. I just wanted to add a little clarification to some of the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Dawson Clinton. You should be able to speak now.
Unmute, sorry.
That's okay, we can hear you.
I was a touch screen for a second, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, we're the project sponsor for this. Following up with Roy there. And we also wanted to answer some of Mr. Clip's concerns or address some of those. First and foremost, we're very into landscaping and we want to maintain landscaping. We want to have sustainable landscaping. That's why we opted to open up the down on the 17th Street frontage, have the open space area sense of landscaping that's going to go back in there. To point one of Mr. Clip's, we've always been tree centric. And it's always been a part of the discussion for us. There's a lot of trees that are there. There's a lot of unstable trees. There's a significant amount of excavation going on. And it was important for us though to honor the site and come back in with some sustainable, mature landscaping. In terms of point two from him, alternative construction methods, just the steep nature of the site has made alternative construction methods along with the amount of excavation required just not feasible to happen there to maintain the trees. I have a note for number 3, but I'm not sure what Mr. Clip's third point was. I guess it didn't need a response from me. Point 4, no trees are being removed for a driveway in particular. So if that was a concern, that's not a concern with this project. Point 5 kind of piggybacks on my response to point 1, where you were talking about baby trees. It's really important to us that we're not putting in baby trees here. We're very dedicated to putting in large boxes, 36-inch boxes, mature trees throughout the project. That goes for both on in the rear yard setbacks as well as at the street locations.
I'm doing great. Who's this?
We have, in terms of the number of trees going back in, we have 4 trees going on 17th and Roosevelt. We have 3 street trees along Upper Terrace. And in addition to that, on our plans, we have an additional 10 trees within the rear yard. That's not just landscaping, that's actual trees. And again, have every intention to put in mature trees here. So again, 36-inch box trees in the rear yard setbacks. Further, this kind of falls out of specifically the tree discussion, but it's very important to us, not only the pedestrian experience and the beautification of what's admittedly a little bit of a Wild West intersection there with the widening of the sidewalk, putting in some beautiful sustainable trees in the sidewalk, in the public right of way, and creating a safer, more pedestrian friendly, and frankly, more beautiful area. So
You have 30 seconds.
I think that's all I have to say. I appreciate your guys' comments and concerns on this, and I'm done.
Thank you. There are no more hands at the moment.
Okay. And if there's no more public comment, I'll give the floor back over to Steve Keller if you would like to address any comments.
Yeah. So I guess in a hot topic for a lot of the people were talking about why don't I know the specific number of replacement trees. I think it's not a very straightforward site, as you can tell. It's kind of a odd intersection with multiple crosswalks and streetlights. So I still need to do a better job of exactly IDing like how many of the proposed trees will be able to be planted, because you have to be certain distances from stop signs and crosswalks and make sure you're not obstructing view angles for drivers. And again, from the outset, I stated we will make sure that the project plants the maximum number of trees that is feasible at the site. That's the number one rule for new construction, no matter what. That's always the plan. But again, given new utility installations, stop signs and crosswalks, I don't have that exact number at the moment, but I wish I did, but I do not. And again, the new landscaping at the back of the sidewalk, it will be visible from the sidewalk, and the public will get some benefit from the trees, even though they're planted on private property. And in terms of why, for the non-replacement of significant trees, why we only assessed the standard in lieu fee, we just, based on the quality of the trees and the locations of them, we didn't think they would appraise for much more than than the standard in lieu fee. And some of them probably wouldn't even appraise for the standard in lieu fee. So we decided to just go with the standard in lieu fee of $21.93. And again, I don't think preservation of trees at the site was really taken into account when it was at planning for new design. It's a it's basically a rocky slope. And I don't think much new construction would have been possible while maintaining some of the existing trees. So I don't think that was really taken into account from the outset. And I guess in terms of Lance's question from the previous item, there's only one tree on the Ashbury frontage of that property. So there's no question as to which tree we're talking about at this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I will now close this item and will make my recommendations to the director. Next, we have order number 204320 for 651 Scott Street. I'll hand the floor back over to you, Steve Keller, for Public Works presentation.
Yes, hello. This is to consider the removal of one tree with replacement at 65 Scott Street. The Bureau of Urban Forestry denied the removal permit and the applicant has appealed. This is the photo of the tree. It's a large Corymbia ficifolia or red flowering gum. At this particular property is under construction. I believe they are adding some new dwelling units. As part of that construction, the driveways are being removed. I guess let me kind of backtrack real quick. The main reason the applicant has applied to remove this tree is because they don't think they can fix the sidewalk without destabilizing the tree due to root loss for sidewalk repair. But it's the opinion of Public Works that I think the sidewalk can be repaired while still preserving the structural integrity of the tree's roots. So again, the driveways are being removed, which can allow for a very large basin expansion, meaning the concrete can be demoed. We won't prune roots, and the concrete will not be poured back, and it'll just be a larger landscaped area. Here's just a close-up of what conceivably could be an enlarged tree basin. So all that area, we would not have to do any root pruning. This is a photo of the tree to show it has even though it has a little bit of a lean, that we think the tree's growth has corrected back vertically. It also has very good trunk taper, something you would like to see in a tree this size. The main concern of the applicant was they don't think they can restore the sidewalk past the yellow line without doing substantial root pruning and damaging the roots to a point that would be unsafe. Again, it's our opinion that you can do a large basin expansion, and then on the area behind the yellow line in the pedestrian path of travel, we can open up the concrete and we can, advise the concrete masons, and, after we actually see the roots, we can advise them what to do to make sure they repair it safely. We can have them possibly not cut any roots or just do some very mild shaving. Compared to some damage we've seen in the city, this, removal of this tree we don't think it's necessary, and we think it's a tree that's worthy of saving. And again, we can take a very detailed approach and demo the concrete and look at the roots and see what needs to be done to preserve the tree. There's no reason to approve it for removal right now. And additionally, the property owner is not under an obligation to the liability is not on them to fix the sidewalk. It's the city is responsible to maintain this tree, and it's our responsibility to fix the sidewalk as well. I think that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see some hands here.
Yes, we have Stephen Howard. Mr. Howard, you should be able to speak.
Yes, hello, my name's Stephen Howard. I'm with Davey Tree, representing, well, assisting Mark Grant, the owner of the building, in the project. So, yeah, he's just a little concerned about the tripping hazard aspect. Corymbia is a very fast growing tree species. His records, you know, he's had to replace the sidewalk more like on a 2 to 3 year cycle rather than like a 4 to 5 year cycle, like it's kind of more standard for most street trees. I know the sidewalk is the city's responsibility to repair, but a lot of us know how long the list is, and that sort of stuff doesn't happen as fast as we all wish it could. So the basin expansion is great laterally, you know, along the street. But the backside is the concern because it only is opening it up about an extra foot on the backside. And with the tree having about a 3-foot diameter, the critical root zone where the structural roots are going to be is, you know, almost all the way to the doorstep to the entrance, about 10 feet. So we're still going to have to do a lot of root pruning in the critical root zone, which is a short-term and a medium-term concern. You know, instability might not show itself right away, but, you know, strong winds and weather event down the line when the roots are already weak in that side could be a concern. Also, we'd probably have to do pruning on the tree to lighten the load because it is really heavily weighted over the street. It's not on the city's pruning schedule until 2022 to 2023. So that's another expense for the homeowner to lighten the load to compensate for root loss on the backside. In a perfect world, the homeowner, you know, is looking to remove the tree and replace with 2 more trees, which there should be room since the garages are going away. But yeah, you know, we won't really know any absolutes until the concrete gets pulled out, and then we'll meet with one of the city inspectors to take a look at what it's going to take to reset the concrete. But it's pretty substantial heaving, you know, like 3 to 4 inches probably in the highest spots. So, you know, taking that amount of roots down, even if you're shaving it, I mean, you might be shaving all the way through or severing completely, but we will find that out when we do those repairs.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. We have Lance Carnes. Go ahead, Mr. Carnes.
Okay, Lance here. I don't have an issue with the tree. I have an issue with the records and the procedure that was used to put this tree on the removal hearing. So we checked back, and 651 Scott Street may have been posted with a Bureau of Urban Forestry removal notice. However, it didn't appear on the online removal site. And that's a criterion of, you know, you have to inform the public of what's happening. So if you neglected to post it correctly, I believe you have to remove this from this particular hearing and hear it again with the correct posting. Thank you.
And we have Mr. Josh Clipp. Go ahead, Mr. Clipp.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So,
Oh. I apologize, Mr. Clipp. I hit the wrong button. Go ahead and start over again. I'm sorry. Go ahead. We can hear you.
it happens even to pros like you, Cerise.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so as Steve mentioned, sidewalks with tree-related issues are the city's problem now, and even if those weren't fixed for a long time, it's still the city's problem. That's what the voters decided in 2017 with Prop E. And if the property owner wanted to keep liability for the sidewalk and the tree, they could have indicated that to the city and opted out of Prop E. There are a lot of instances where a tree cannot be saved no matter how hard we try, and there are instances where a tree might be saved if only we tried a little bit harder. And then there are instances where a tree does not need to be removed. And apparently this is one of those instances. And so the applicant understands we have the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States. And now we have, I think Steve could confirm, basically no budget to plant trees around this city. We are not following our 2014 urban forest plan, which required a net gain of 2,500 trees per year for 20 years. As a matter of fact, since 2014, we've lost something like 8,000 trees rather than gain a single one. So unless, we literally cannot afford to take out trees unless there is absolutely no other option. So I would respectfully oppose the removal of the tree on that basis. Also, assuming the application is denied, I'd also respectfully request that the city keep an eye on this to ensure compliance. It certainly happened more than once that once a property owner or developer was denied an application to remove a tree, it went ahead and took actions that were so inconsistent with that decision that it basically rendered it inconsequential. So I would just make that ask as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clip. And we have John Nolte. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. My other concern that was raised by the representative of the owner was that he's going to prune the tree. So I'm questioning, because it wasn't discussed with Steve, that the tree needed to be pruned above. So I'm concerned about, again, you need a permit to prune a tree. And I didn't hear anything about that in the discussion, if this tree needed to be pruned and how much of pruning would be taking place. And of course, we would want the city arborist to make sure that the tree is pruned properly, if it is pruned, or the order suggests that the tree should be pruned. So all we're right now talking about is sort of the concrete and not removing it, but I didn't hear anything about possible tree pruning that they said that they might want to do to the tree for whatever reason by the property owner. Thank you. That's my only comment.
Thank you. I see no more hands, Ms. Montoya.
Okay. I'll give a chance, Steve, if you had any comment before moving on to the next order.
Yeah. In regards, I think Lance had a comment about not the tree not showing up on the city's tree removal notification website ahead of this. This tree was denied by the city. So because it was never approved for removal by Public Works, it was never posted with a removal notice and therefore never showed up on the city's tree removal notification website. So if a tree is denied, if a tree removal permit is denied, and then the applicant appeals, it goes straight to a tree removal hearing without any other notification to the public. And that's standard. In regards to the pruning the tree, based on, I would say this photo, the tree does need to be pruned, and the owner's representative from Davy Tree is a good arborist that works with our office often, and we would leave if they chose to prune the tree, that they understand our standards, and that would be fine. And again, I'd like to stress that it's, we've, even in situations like this, we've often even removed concrete. And if we think the tree is so great, but we think the roots are a problem, we've often told people to just pour the concrete back over the roots. The sidewalk would have to be slightly sloped, but we would prefer that to having to remove a healthy large canopy tree. Thanks.
Okay, I will now close this item and we'll make recommendations to the director. Next, we will move on to order number 204321 at 3641 California Street. I'll hand the floor back over to Steve Keller of Public. Hello
again, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. This case is considered the removal of one significant tree without replacement at 3641 California Street. The Bureau of Urban Forestry has approved the removal and the public has protested. Here's a photo of the tree. The red arrow is pointing to it. It is a significant tree, meaning it's on private property, but within 10 feet of the public right-of-way. The tree has been approved for removal because the site is being developed into a larger building and the tree is in the footprint of the new design. In this slide, you can see the red X. That's the location of the tree. It would not be feasible to keep the tree given the approved design. And then the red star is a tree on the plan that said new street tree. I'm not sure if that'll be possible or not, given the proximity to the street light and the existing tree. There may be room. You could maybe fit another pollarded London plane tree in between the two existing trees. There's probably adequate space to do that, but we would have to shift that a little towards the center of the frontage. Because this significant tree is not going to be able to be replaced, we did appraise its replacement value. You can see at the bottom, the appraised value is $3,700. That's the amount of money that we're going to assess the project for the non-replacement of a significant tree. And that's in addition to their requirement for they'll have to plant new trees as well or pay other in lieu fees based on their street tree planting. Here are some of the structural issues that were mentioned in the assessment. The photo on the right shows kind of a codominant trunk. That is a potential point of failure, even though we don't see this species fail that often or have trunk failures. And then up in the middle of the canopy, you can see where the tree was topped in the past. And now there's kind of vigorous regrowth. Like these are all areas that could start decaying or lead to canopy decline. Again, he's kind of a close-up of how past ownership had been doing canopy reductions and kind of probably over-thinning these trees throughout their life. And here's just a photo showing the trunk is quite large and the roots are starting to impinge on the neighbor's fence, which, isn't, if they weren't developing the site, that wouldn't be a reason to remove the tree. And then also a presence of, it looks like some root rot. That the photo on the right is a photo of a mushroom. So we presume there's some type of underground, some type of decay or fungus affecting the roots of the tree. There's a close-up of the decay. Again, I guess in summary, the tree is approved for removal because it's in the footprint of a new building. And additionally, it wasn't a tree that was worthy of designing around in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would like to provide any comment, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, again, it's *9.
We have Melinda Sarjapour. Go ahead. You should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm speaking on behalf of the sponsor of the project. Is this the time for me to speak, or should I wait for end of comment?
Yes, you can go ahead and speak. I'm sorry.
Oh. Great. Thank you. Good evening. As I mentioned, I'm here tonight on behalf of the property owner who's the applicant for the tree removal permit. We submitted a brief with the reasons for the removal of the tree and some of the images for context. So hopefully you have that. The tree to be removed is located on the private property. As the representative from Bureau of Urban Forestry mentioned, the primary reason for removal is that it's just not feasible to preserve the tree during construction of a residential project at the site. More than 2 years ago, the applicant submitted building permit applications for a project to construct a 9-unit residential building here. That project is completed design and environmental review, and they're anticipating issuance of a site permit and the start of construction in the near future. Along with our brief, we submitted the demolition and site plan for the project, and those plans show that the new building will occupy the full lot width along California. The building footprint will completely overlap the current tree at issue. So as a practical matter, demolition and construction of the project necessitate its removal. There's simply no way to maintain it with the footprint of the building over top. It's also worth noting, as the BUF representative did, that this tree isn't in particularly good condition. It's planted in a narrow strip of dirt between the existing paved driveway and fence, and over time that's constrained its development. Along with the removal application, the Bureau of Urban Forestry evaluated the tree, and they noted a number of concerning features in their field report, which were summarized a little bit earlier. But just to reiterate some, that this tree has been topped previously and has overall poor form, that there are fruiting bodies on the structural root, which were seen as a sign of some root decay. There are a multitude of weakly attached sprouts on each of the large stems. It has some codominant stems. And because of its location between that wall and the fence, it's really been constrained in its development and ability to develop the trunk flare that they noted is generally important. So in summary, we're asking you to deny the appeal and allow removal of this tree. First, because it's located in the footprint of a future residential building and so can't be retained during construction. And second, because it's just not a particularly healthy specimen. We do note that we have filed an application, a checklist for planting an additional tree in the public right-of-way, and that the project itself wouldn't remove or harm the existing tree in the public right-of-way in front of the property. And those are pending DPW approval. So thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We have Mr. Josh Clipp. Go ahead, Mr. Clipp.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
It's a pretty short agenda tonight, but another tree coming out for development. And this one looks like it's the one tree that would have fallen into the purview of Public Works Code Article 16. But in fact, we're talking really about an entire row of trees coming out within the footprint of this development. So again, that's more conversion of permeable to impermeable surface. And also the plan shows this new tree, which it sounds like no one's really checked to see if it was possible, versus say the last development related removal where we didn't know the number. And I think it just, this isn't rocket science. You know, all of this goes through planning. We've got all of this expertise on how to build, construction methods, landscape architects, city engineers, all of this knowledge. And the fact that we can't figure this out, or that things get through planning that say a new tree can go somewhere and we've never actually looked into it, I think it just goes to show that this is just not a priority in our city. But I suppose if I had to guess, my guess would be that no one talked about or even thought about that at planning. They just saw a red star and thought that that was going to be a new tree. It's just really kind of depressing as somebody who cares a lot about this issue and the future of our city and our planet, to see us paving over trees faster than we can plant them, and certainly faster than they grow. Because each of these decisions, you know, we're making all these decisions in a vacuum, but this is an entire ecosystem, and we can't be making these decisions as if nature and housing are incompatible, because we can do both. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Clipp. I see no more hands, Ms. Montoya.
Steve Keller, if we had any responses to anything, let me know before I move on to the next order.
I think, I mean, again, I'll just stress that, you know, it's already, in terms of a new tree, it's a very narrow site, and it's, you know, it's only the left of the brick wall to where the existing tree removal is going to go. And there's already 2 trees that book in the site. So it's, you know, in the new utilities for this property, we're going to have to space those away from the two existing trees because we don't want to damage the roots of those trees, which will inevitably push the new utilities somewhere towards more towards the center of the property, which would then, you know, be where we would want to plant a new tree. So, and you know, there's not always free reign as to where the new utilities will go. So if we can get a new tree in the site, you know, it's plausible, but it's not a guarantee. But if we can get a new tree spaced equidistant between the two existing London plane trees and make sure the utilities are clear of, you know, the existing trees so those roots aren't damaged, then we would love to have a new tree there. It's it's just the utilities are often one of the last things to go in, or to be not the last thing. Is they're unfortunately sometimes an afterthought. And it's kind of my job to tell the applicant, like, hey, it's like, I want you to think about, before you can put the new trees, you have to think about the utilities, because they're all very interrelated. Thanks.
Okay, I will now close this item and we'll make my recommendations to the director. We now have our final order, which is order number 204322 at 1234 Lombard Street. I will now turn the floor back over to Steve Keller of Public Works Bureau of Urban Forestry to make their presentation.
Okay, 1234 Lombard Street to consider the removal of one significant tree on private property without replacement. The Bureau of Urban Forestry has approved the removal and the public has protested. This is a picture of the tree. It's the large red flowering gum tree in the center of the photo. It's more or less pretty close to the property line between 1234 and 1240 Lombard. The trunk is growing into the adjacent building and beginning to cause physical damage to the property. Pruning would not mitigate the issue, will not mitigate the issue, and the structure of the tree cannot be modified at a reasonable cost to accommodate the tree. Our records show that a tree removal permit was issued in 2010, but the tree was never removed, and tree removal permits expire after 6 months. Here's a photo of the tree. You can see the address on the right says 1234 Lombard. Again, it's a very large trunk, and these trees don't really slow down their growth as they get older. And this one seems quite healthy and quite vigorous. Here you can see it's just planted outside of the right of way. So that's why it's a significant tree and not a city maintained tree. And here you can see it's planted near or on top of several different utilities. I believe behind the tree might be an electric utility, and there appears to be a gas meter in the forefront as well. There's a picture of the removal notice on the tree, and even more utilities on the left. I believe that's a cable box. Another picture of the cable box. And here's a good photo of the trunk of the tree pressing up against the facade of the building. This issue is just going to keep getting worse. There's really nothing you could do to prevent the tree from continuing to damage the facade of the building. And then here, for the reasons the tree cannot be replaced, it's a narrow sidewalk. The tree is currently planted on a bunch of utilities, so we would not want to put a new tree back there. And because this is not related to development, we would not be charging the owners any in lieu fees for the non-replacement of the tree, because they're removing it for practical reasons and due to property damage. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open it up to the public.
We have Robert Aidlet. I hope I said that correctly. I'm sorry. You should now be able to talk.
Hi. Yes, we have a presentation to share.
Oh, okay, just one moment and I will promote you to panelist, and then you should be able to share your screen.
We can see it.
Yes, we can see it. Can you unmute yourself, please? We're unable to hear you. Mr. Aidlet?
Oh, yeah, there we
There
go.
you go.
I'm sorry.
All right.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
Sorry about that, technical difficulties. This is Karen Donovan. I'm
No
Robert.
problem.
Just briefly, the tree exits the ground wholly on the property of 1234 Lombard. We wanted to note that. The trunk proceeds up, but as Mr. Keller showed, it then also is traveling towards the sidewalk, essentially coming towards you in this photo. And there are two main branches, one of which does branch towards 1242. And now Mr. Keller already showed this. The tree is extremely close to the structures, both 1234 Lombard and the neighboring structure. As you can see, it extends over the sidewalk. This is the sidewalk of Lombard Street between Polk and Larkin, which gets a significant amount of pedestrian foot traffic, particularly on the weekends as people are going up to the crooked street. So in a heavy windstorm, there is the potential that this could drop things on the pedestrians as they proceed up the sidewalk. Next slide. As Mr. Keller already showed this, the tree is close to the structures and is threatening both structures. Next slide. And we submitted a report that was prepared by an arborist a little over a year ago that did conclude that there are hazards associated both with the proximity of the tree to the buildings and the weight and distribution of the crown as it extends over the sidewalk. Once again, a very heavily traveled sidewalk. Next slide. The arborist stated that if the tree remains, we can expect cracking and upheaving of the building, which could become a safety hazard. That's the main reason we're now moving forward with this. We are concerned that there could be damage to our structure, and we're just seeking to mitigate that. Final slide. And just to note, we have tried to abate the hazard posed by this tree in the past. Our HOA at 1234 Lombard has exclusively paid for the pruning of the tree in the past, but the tree is continuing to grow, and we feel we've reached a point where it just has to come out. We are willing to make a contribution to Friends of the Urban Forest and to work with the neighboring property owner to come up with some appropriate planting in this site, but we simply can't have a tree of this size there anymore. And Robert, you can, that concludes our presentation, and you can stop sharing if you want.
Thank you very much. We have Josh Clip. Go ahead, Mr. Clip.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I want to thank the homeowner and the homeowners association, first of all, for the fact that you put that much time into it shows that you care about this, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the care that you've taken of that tree for so many years. I really also appreciate what you said about being willing to make some type of donation to Friends of the Urban Forest, where actually I volunteer there, and I think it's a wonderful organization. What bothers me about this order is that it says no replacement, and I understand that the reason that it says that is because of perhaps constraints on that site. But in a city that's got 40,000 empty tree basins, there really is no reason why any removal order should ever say no replacement. There is always a place for a replacement in the city, and we need to stop looking just site by site and start looking whether it's block by block or district by district. But we've got to start looking beyond just the little 3 foot by 3 foot square in front of a particular address. Otherwise, we continue to lose trees. That our urban canopy dies the death of 1,000 cuts because we just look at one at a time. And that's not the way we need to look at this. We need to look at this holistically. So my objection is to the fact that there's no replacement. And I think given that the homeowners association is willing to work with, whether it's the department or whether it's front of the urban forest, which works closely with the department, there needs to be some remediation for this not being able to be replaced, perhaps in exactly this location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clip. I see no more hands, Ms. Montoya.
Okay. Steve Keller, did you have any comments before?
Actually,
Oh, did we have?
Well, he raised his hand and lowered it, so I don't know. No hands. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it looked like Lance raised his hand just now.
We can let Lance speak.
All right, sorry, I fumbled the raised hand thing. So again, I'm looking at the records rather than the tree. The tree at 1234 Lombard was never posted on the online tree removal site. It was posted as 1240 Lombard. I don't know if that's even a valid address. Sounded like they had 1234 and 1242. So I think the public deserves to have as accurate records as possible. And I think that you might want to take a look at this one and decide to whether you want to go ahead or just repost it correctly for the public's benefit. And Mr. Keller, you and I have been communicating about the location of trees for about 2 years. And I've noticed that, well, I don't walk around the streets and look at trees. I look at the database that you folks maintain. And I've noticed that you often are an empiricist. You just look at the tree standing on the sidewalk and maybe glance over your shoulder at a street address on the house nearby, which may or may not be the correct street address in the database. So I think you owe it to the public to keep your records accurate. And when you post a tree for removal, that you use the database address. And so we can follow along from home here. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Yeah, there are no more hands at this time.
Okay, I'll give it back to Steve Keller if you'd like to address any comments.
Sure, I would, one comment about the no replacement of the tree. I think one point that's missed about stating no replacement is it's for the public to understand that once a tree is gone from this site, there's never going to be a tree there again. So it's not so much that like the city's not replacing trees, it's to gauge, for the public to gauge whether they want to protest or not, because some people are okay with the tree going away if they know a tree is going to go back in that same spot. But if they know it's not being replaced in that spot, they might think twice and try to fight harder for it, to stay a little bit longer. So that's kind of why we have to keep that nomenclature there, it's because it is a kind of like it makes a big difference to some people. And then in terms of the addressing of the tree, the tree is, yeah, as I pointed out and the homeowner pointed out, is at 1234. I think there was never, the photos of the tree were posted online. There was never any question as to which tree was being proposed for removal. We can look to see how it was posted originally on the website, if it was posted with 1240 as opposed to 1234. That could have been left up to interpretation of the original inspector. I can look into that. But I don't think there was ever any confusion as to which tree was being proposed for removal originally or at the hearing. Thanks. That's all.
Okay, thank you. If there's no more comments, I will now close this item and we'll make my recommendations to the director. That was the last order, and I don't think there was any other folks on here that have not had a chance to speak. So I'll now be closing this hearing. Thank you everyone for your comments, and I hope everyone has a great night. This hearing is now closed.
Thank you.